Hello, neighbors. This is Daniel.
This is Katie.
Welcome back to the Future Neighbor podcast.
Welcome back. How's everybody doing?
Good? Bad? Okay? In the middle? How are we doing, Katie?
I think in the middle.
Yeah, definitely.
All the cafes and restaurants in Korea. Not in Korea. I don't know.
In Seoul, like there's been another outbreak of the COVID.
Second wave?
Is it the second, maybe third? We have little outbreaks like every once in a while.
Yeah,
This
but
one
it's
is
never
due-
gone this strong.
This one is due to people going to the church.
And then they went to a huge protest.
Yeah, and so now it's spreading all over again. And so to catch the infection before it becomes too big to control,
Yeah.
they're requiring all the cafes or at least the big chain cafes to not serve customers inside. So only take out like Starbucks or Tusum Place or Coffee Bene.
Yeah. But small like indie shops or mom and pop
Yeah.
cafes are okay to open.
It's hard to stay inside.
Mm.
Like we're so used to being outdoors, like on the weekends,
Yes.
just finding some place to go and checking it out. That's like our routine.
Mm.
From Monday through Friday, we're pretty good. We're indoors
Mm.
all the time, just working.
Yeah.
But then we need that release.
On the weekend.
But then when we don't, and we're just in this like stale, air-conditioned like house, it's no matter how comfortable it is, you get this like anxiety, this antsy feeling, no?
Yeah, and I get kind of tired of this AC air too. So we decided to go a little bit out of town, do a little drive. And then we ended up finding this little stream of water coming from the mountain.
Yeah, it reminded me of like old school Korea when like kids from the countryside would like play. So
Have you done it?
actually once when I went to my grandma's house for the first time,
Yeah.
like back 10 years ago, my cousins were there. We had nothing to do, but there was this big river coming down the mountain.
Mm.
So we would go and to go catch fishes, throw some water on each
Yeah,
other.
It's really fun.
It's so pure.
Yeah.
Just the
yeah.
thought, you know?
Yeah, I have those memories too when I was young. And then I haven't really been to 계곡 in a long while.
Yeah, like a river or like a mountainside stream in Korea, it's called 계곡.
Yeah, and the
And-
water is so clean and it was so cool because it was so hot today too, right?
Yeah, so we drove by and we saw this 계곡. We got out, we took off our shoes, and then there was like families.
Yeah.
You know, I love it when there's some families who just know how to enjoy. So they had like, some camping seats. They had their kids. They brought a whole watermelon, split it
they were
up,
so ready.
had their feet in the running water.
And then just chilling.
Yeah, and then some people, they take it to the next level. They bring like ramen and samgyeopsal and
Yeah, and
they're
just
cooking and
cooking.
enjoying.
Yeah, we
I
were
like
so
that.
impressed.
Growing up, we never really did that, my family. I think
Really?
we did go camping once in a while, but it was like a really planned effort. It was never
Mm.
whimsical to go and explore the nature.
Yeah.
Because,
I think it's either the dad has to be really passionate about it most of the times.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you're the mom. But then the dad has to do a lot of lifting and all this work. So
I remember, because now that I think about it, my dad took us camping. I think it might have been in Big Bear because we lived, near Orange County. So we drove like an hour and a half. And then I think we arrived there a little bit late when the sun was falling. So it was around 5.
yeah.
We got everything, like the water cooler out of the trunk. And we're setting everything up. Then we pulled out the tent. And then the poles were missing.
Oh.
So my mom had packaged that into a different thing instead of inside the box. And so then I still remember my mom and my dad
Did they have a fight?
giving death stares to each other, because they didn't want to ruin the trip for us. Like, again, it was like a planned trip.
Oh
So then my dad was like, I have to go by myself. And then I like
Oh my
volunteered, I'll go with you. 2 hours straight or maybe 3 hours, really quickly back to the house, got the poles and came back up. And by nighttime, it was like, we could barely figure it out. But I still remember that very vividly. But it was a nice
Oh,
experience.
but sounds really stressful.
Oh yeah, it's very stressful. I mean, we don't have kids, so we don't know what it means to do a family trip with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
But my friend, the friend who's also developer friend
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
2 daughters.
Sure.
He said he's like really into camping now, so he started to buy all those camping gears.
Yeah.
And it's coming up to almost 100,000 won. Which is like,
$1,000.
yeah, $1,000. And then he said it's like a big hassle to even find and book in advance for the camping spot in this area because it's so like busy and all like packed up.
I think that camping market is getting big in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even glamping. But you don't really get like real nature camping. Like Koreans, we're not there yet. We like the idea of sleeping outdoors, but we like it with electric plugs. We like it with like a mini air conditioning. We like it with the phones in our faces. We just like the idea of being outdoors, but not like a Bear Grylls survival alone outdoors.
I think so.
But I think I'm the same way. I don't think I would really enjoy camping out in nature.
I already get stressed thinking about all the tools and utensils that I'll have to prepare.
But maybe we should take a trip so you can get over your phobia about little bugs. Katie, your reactions to little bugs is beautiful. Just
I've been getting better, I think, right?
I don't know from what data points you've been suggesting you're getting better, but speaking of the campfire, I still remember that that night my dad had an idea from his military service to put a whole chicken in aluminum foil and then put it under the burning coals. So, you have the little fire at night, but then you can slide the chicken underneath. And then the next morning, my dad was like, woke me up. He's like, hey, come check out this chicken. And I was like, Dad, there's no way this would have cooked. And like, I was just so skeptical. But then when I opened, it was so steamy. Like,
wow.
And it was so good. And that food memory is still burned into my brain. Yeah, there's like things about food when I was young that still really is visceral. I remember it. I remember other times, like my mom, since she was so busy with working and helping my dad out of business, we would have samgyeopsal a lot, which is the Korean pork belly at home. So we would do Korean barbecue all the time.
Oh.
Right? In that small little apartment in Fullerton, we put it out and just grilling. And sometimes it's very stressful, like day at work. So it's just silent. But just hearing that like barbecue grill on that pan and all of us just looking and waiting for it, I don't know. That's also kind of a very happy but real memory to me.
That's really nice.
I also remember like my mom loving to eat like gwabegi, the donuts at the Korean market. I don't know. These memories around food is much more real to me, and I can remember the exact time, but I have a very bad short-term memory. Yeah. But
only short-term memory?
well, long-term memory too, maybe.
We couldn't even remember what we did last weekend. This is a serious problem.
I don't think most people can either.
Do you think it's because of Google?
No, I think it's because of, that too, but all the days are merging into the same with COVID.
Is it because of COVID?
Well, I like to blame it on COVID. It's so funny when we go climbing, the instructor, they'll give you like 20 holds to memorize.
Yeah.
And for people who have been climbing, some of them just memorize it. And that like
really... at once.
Yeah. Like this guy who's probably the best guy in our class, he'll just look and then he'll reenact where he needs to hold with his hands.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, okay, I'm ready. And he just memorizes 20 holds and just goes.
Yeah, I think he's just very talented in that way.
No, but everyone in the advanced class just memorizes.
Really?
Yeah.
So is it over time? They just got practice?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think like short-term memory, you have it, a bad one or a good one, but it can be trained. I have this phobia of like in Korea, because Korean is my second language. When an operator tells me, oh, sorry, you want to call this department. Do you have a pen and paper ready? I go, oh, no. They go, 023257878. And I'll be like,
you're really slow with numbers.
I know.
In Korean.
Maybe my brain is really getting old. I'll be like, 0, 2, 3,
He sounds like a grandfather.
7. They'll be like, 네? 아니, 그거 아닌데요. 02325. I'll be like, 3, 2. Yeah, but why I say it's mental is now I have had a little like fear of that because it was so hard for me in the beginning. Now I've gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
But then I always tell them, 저 기억력이 안 좋아서 좀 천천히 해주세요. Which means my memory is really bad, so please go very slow. So that's you don't have anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I also have to remember my bolts in climbing, but I just know that it's impossible to remember at once.
So you don't even try?
I just let people go first.
Yeah.
Stay until maybe towards the end and to have several iterations. And then, I mean, it's just way too difficult for me at this stage. So Daniel, you talked to your parents today? It's Sunday.
Yeah.
You've been trying to call your parents more like regularly at set time.
Yeah.
So
it's because we had a little skirmish. I don't know. I just feel like, especially during these COVID times, but I don't know if it's just COVID, but I think my parents are getting older and I feel like my parents are getting more sensitive.
Yeah. You had a big event last week.
Yeah. Should I describe it? I feel like, a lot of listeners can benefit because, what we were talking about earlier, that there's no, families don't talk about their problems. Your problems with your family might actually be like nothing. But then when you don't know how other families live, then it might feel like it's everything. Or you could be living in a very bad situation. Yeah. But you don't have a benchmark. So you don't know that it's bad.
So I always tell you, I always ask you, I wonder how other families are like, how non-Korean families are like, how European families are like.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Is like your relationship with parents, like the problems that we have, is that more of an ethnic thing or is that more of an age thing? Yeah. And that is a very good question to me. For example, one of the big fights, well, not a big fight, but like something that was unsettling. Look at me trying to already like package it.
Yes, bring it raw, Daniel.
Bring it raw. No, I mean, apparently my mom and dad, there's been some crazy thing, whereas these lawyers, they represent a client who were trying to sue my parents because parking lot for disabled people, there's apparently rules according to the state on how you're supposed to put up that sign for disabled parking. But underneath it, there needs to be another thing that says like either violators would be prosecuted or it's a $300 fine. There's some protocol on how the sign should be. But apparently there's this guy who is Korean, who's targeting Korean businesses or Korean immigrants since they don't have that much expertise in law about this loophole. My dad has some commercial property and some of the parking spots, apparently it didn't have that little specific requirement. Yeah. And so he sued him and then he was trying to take him to court. My dad was getting very stressed by this because if you looked onto the Rite Aid or some of the bigger chains right next door or even Walmart, none of them had the protocol, but they don't sue those bigger chains because they know they have good lawyers, corporate lawyers, right? Yeah. So this guy's pulling a Donald Trump. Right, he's trying to. He find a loophole in this
manipulating,
federal law, and then he's targeting people who get fearful of a lawsuit and then just pay them. Right, so I call this
sly.
I call this 인간 쓰레기, which is like human trash. Right, and my dad was like, "How can you go to law school, as a Korean American or like an immigrant in the U.S., get your law degree and then come back and target your own community?" What kind of like human being are you? And I completely agree. Like, I mean,
so disappointing too.
Yeah. And so my dad was very disheartened about that. And eventually it actually worked out to his favor. But during that process, he was getting a lot of stress and he told me about it. And then a few weeks ago, I called my parents to see how they were doing. And I forgot about that because when you live in a different country, things that happen in your country, it's like we're living on two different planets. We're in two different time zones and it's just like out of sight, out of mind. That's just
hard truth.
Yeah, that's the hard truth. Like, my parents don't know every little thing that's going on and all the hardships of what I'm going through. We only know what we communicate, right? So when my dad communicated about this lawsuit, I think he just mentioned like, I can't believe this is it. But I didn't know he was going through as much like stress as he was trying to handle this. And so my mom called me and I was talking with my mom and then she dropped one of those lines, which was like, you know, you don't even call your dad when you know he's going through such a hard time. And I was like,
you're not even any help
yeah, you're
as
no,
a son.
yeah, as a son, and I raised you so hard. Like, this is what I get back. Kind of something along those lines, because it's very hard to translate Korean into English directly. But basically, that was the nuance, and my mom kind of threw that in.
Yeah.
That word or those phrases has kind of been like something that really sets me off, because I've been hearing it so much after I moved to Korea. Right? Like, I raised you like this, and why don't you do better? Or like, there's no point in raising a son, or like, she just throws that out there. After you hear it like repeatedly, I start to believe it too. Like, I'm really messing up. I told my parents, like, I'm calling you guys just to see how you are, and there's no way through these like once a week conversations that I could understand completely where you are in your headspace. And you know, don't say those kind of things, because it's really like upsetting. And I don't think you should say that, because that, you know, that really hurts too, that you keep saying that. It just makes me not want to talk to you guys when you say something like that. Right? Yeah. And then one thing leads to another, and we say more things. And yeah, I don't know. And
then it didn't really lead to any conclusion, right?
Because it doesn't lead to any conclusions, because from my parents' perspective, it's my dad. It's like, hey, listen, like, why can't your mom say something like that? She raised you. Like, if she's feeling a little upset, look how immature you are blowing up about this. Can't you let your mom vent? In some ways, that's right. Yeah. Like, I totally understand that perspective too. But
for you, it's something that really bothers you, and
and I've told them that
they could not do it.
I've told them in the past, like, when you get really upset, just like get upset at the situation, but you don't have to bring all this like, how did I raise you? Guilt tripping. Like, I had so much more expectations from you, and like, why do you have to take it there all the time? And I always tell them, do you really mean that? Because if you don't say that, because when I don't live near you guys, and our basically relationship is based on distance, whatever you say is really how I take it. I mean, it's very hard for me to see the nuance in your face. We're not FaceTiming, you know, and so this little squabble, which turns into them telling me, you don't think about the family, you're just living by yourself. And I'm like, do you think I moved to Korea because I wanted to? I didn't have a green card to stay in the States. I wasn't a U.S. citizen. And then they bring that up, and then they get crazy.
They're not interested in what's the truth.
Yeah.
They just want to vent, and that's it. And
I'm supposed to just take it. The funny thing is, I always give you the same advice, and then you always give me the same advice, and it's always right. But when you're emotionally pissed off, it's hard to accept that. And what is the truth is that your parents will never change.
Yeah.
And for you to have a good relationship with your parents, there's two words. 죄송합니다. 노력하겠습니다.
I'll just do better.
Which means I apologize, and I'll need to work harder.
You know, that advice is coming from my own experience, many years.
Yeah, I know.
I have my fair share of those stories too. And
I know, Katie.
Yeah.
Let's have a little therapy session. Let's just air it out there.
But
because I know there's so many people who. One thing that I'm curious about is, is this like
I think it's a Korean thing. You know why? Because in Korea we even have the word 엄친아.
What is
which
that?
is
I don't know. That's
엄마 친구 아들.
Right?
So if somebody is really doing well in life, like successful by that society standards, and then you call them 엄친아, that means he's the son of my mom's friend.
Yeah.
Because you know the moms always compare you to her friend's son or daughter.
Yeah.
Who's supposedly always the perfect version, right? Always better than you.
Yeah.
So to anybody who's doing really well or basically they call him 엄친아 or 엄친딸.
Yeah, but I bet every immigrant parent is like that in the United States or even in Korea.
Mean? Comparing?
Yeah, but it's not a Korean thing. Like, I'm sure like Indian parents be like, oh, look at the Patels over there. Like, their kid went to Harvard and is a, you know, why can't you do anything? You're a piece of crap. You need to, you know. I don't think it's a Korean thing. I think
I don't know. I feel like it's very severe.
In Koreans?
Yeah.
Chinese parents, Japanese parents, Maybe it's an Asian thing. I think it has to be an Asian thing.
And I told you that I even got once compared to Kim Yeona.
Oh, Katie, Katie, you should tell more.
To those who don't know Kim Yeona, yeah, I still remember so strongly.
Give more context.
Like. Yeah, it was like during my years at uni, like my mom was like going through financial difficulties, so she was like at the verge of not being able to support me financially. Things were getting really bad, and when she's...
You mean to pay for your tuition?
Yeah.
Because it's so expensive in London.
Yeah, and then when she was like, like there will be times when she's really down and stressed, and she'll call me, and just during conversations, she'll just go like, look at Kim Yeona. And
guys, Kim Yeona is, I'm sure you know, is like the world figure skating champion.
Yeah.
Like she broke all records, is like the #1 in her thing.
But then she's the same age with me. So during my university years, I think she was really flying high, doing well on all these world stages. She'll be on TV all the time. Yeah. She's like, 아이고, something like her mom, she must have saved the world in the previous life to have a daughter like her. She would say some things like that to me. And then I wouldn't know what she expects from me, right? But like that, those kind of
So your mom will see someone of the same age on TV and being like...
It just happened that she's the same age, and I think it ticked on her mind.
Yeah, like why can't you be as successful as Kim Yeona when I've invested this much money into your education?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and those kind of things will be like piercing through my heart.
But do you think it's also a lack of education?
Of our parents?
Yeah. Like, do you think if my parents were Ivy League educated and your parents as well, I don't think they would say these kind of things. I think it's because our parents are also like, again, from not from poor to middle class, but low middle class to upper middle class. This idea of social climbing through education and jobs, that they have this mentality. Like if our parents, let's say, were like Harvard scholars, right? They would not say any of this because they have the intellectual achievements. They're already happy with their lives, so they don't need to find achievement through their children.
So do you think Obama's daughters wouldn't have to go through these kind of things?
Katie, interesting
question. Do you think
question.
Obama's daughters are like just all happy and no family like issues?
It would be very comforting if indeed Obama was also like, Malia, I'm so 실망 in you, so ashamed. Why don't you talk to your...
look at your friend or something.
Look at your friends. They're getting... But then it would also be disappointing if it was like that too. I don't know.
But at the same time, I feel like Obamas would have a very high expectation on their daughters. So maybe their daughters will have that high pressure to do well in like society or something. I don't know.
The way that I see it, even in my peers, some of my friends have parents who went to Seoul National University. And what they say about their parents usually is they like want them to achieve, but they don't have this like helicopter approach of like you must like succeed or the family will fail. So they have in some ways less pressure, but the kids have their own pressure to beat their parents, right? Or to find purpose. So that's another kind of difficulty. So that's what I think, to be honest, I think if my parents or if our mothers, for example, achieved more intellectually or through, okay, this might be very like kind of
you need to be
shaky things to say. But if they achieve more with their lives, they wouldn't push their kids as much to find fulfillment through them. I'm going to stick with that. That's my hypothesis for now. When I look at myself in the future, if I had children, I would want them to
Which
to
side
have
of the
focus.
parent are you? Are you the already intellectually achieved parent? Or
I would like to think so. Yeah, I mean, scholarly, we did well. We went to whatever jobs that all of our schools.
Will go through that. Your child will go through that difficulty of having to overachieve their parents.
No. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you keep raising these counterpoints that's making it hard. It's like, good job. No, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think I would push my kids to try to become A+ and go to go to the best like Ivy League schools, blah, blah, blah. I would like for them to live a passionate life. I would push them to find focus in one area and to go immerse themselves, whatever subject it is. If it's marine biology, go deep into there. If it's law, go deep into it. I want to see you live a passionate and examined life. And that's all I want. I wouldn't guilt trip them and try to compare them with somebody else and this and that.
Yeah, but I feel like these are the things that are easy to say.
Yeah, but
like
hard
most
to.
of the times when you ask people, do you want your kid to be happy or successful? Most people will pick happy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to raising their own kid,
Yeah.
it seems to be something else in real life. I'm reading this book suggested by my viewer, actually. And it's actually very relevant to what we are saying. 잠깐만.
Sure. Neighbors, while Katie's looking something up, what do you guys think about our talks? I'm sure there's a lot of Asians that know like what we're talking about. But is this only an Asian thing? Or is this like
I'm so curious. And growing up, actually when you go to bookstores in Korea, there's always this child education section.
Yeah.
There's always this book on like how Jewish people raise their children. Is that also a thing in America? I always see that topic.
I'm sorry, but that would be way too politically incorrect, so they would never say that. But what's the thing
but
that
always like 유대인이 뭐 기르는 방법.
They're saying that the way that the
and I think I had a book in my house too, and
interesting.
Yeah, I've never read it, but it seems like they kind of, for me, based on what I've seen, maybe that they have like maybe a good model. Anyway, the book that I'm reading right now, it's called It Didn't Start With You.
This is a Korean book or an English book?
No, it's an English book, and it actually talks about how some of like experiences or traumas or like how you behave, actually it's very much influenced by your parents as well as your parents' parents, and because it's saying that some of the things that consist of who you are even like decided even before you're born, when you are in your mother's womb.
Yeah, I'm sure that's correct. And that's the same thing for our physical bodies too. We're already predestined based on our DNA. When we catch cancer, if we catch cancer, all of that is already in our DNA, right? But I hate that idea. I hate the idea that either our personalities or the way we think or our bodies are kind of predestined. It just runs so counter with the way that I think. Just when you said that, I just remember like when I was in high school, I turned down the offer to do this IQ test. So I don't know what my IQ is because I never wanted to know that figure. In my mind, I always thought if I knew I was very smart, I would try much less. And if I knew I was very dumb, then it would give me an excuse not to perform.
I'm so agree with you. And I actually have a kind of a trauma about an IQ test because when I was in my elementary school, they made us do it.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember what I got, but I think it was definitely lower than I had expected or lower than my friends. And I remember feeling so bad about it and just regretted taking that test. And just in that moment, I just felt so discouraged to do anything because I felt like now I could never be as good as my friends who has a higher IQ. And I felt like that now looking back, it was such a bad thing to do. For like kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I just personally never wanted. My dad was like, "You must take it. You're a genius. You're Albert Einstein." My dad's so funny. He's like, "You can do your multiplication tables faster than anyone, Daniel. You must take it." I'm so curious.
That's your
like,
Korean parent pressurizing you again too.
Yeah.
But ever since I've never taken an IQ test too, and I don't plan to.
But in some ways, we're so lucky to like. I feel like in the bigger scope, the issues that we have with our parents, they're on like the tail end of a very, very blessed family.
Yeah,
like
I'm wondering too.
We're talking about like just some issues about what our parents say to us. I mean, there are so many broken families with like parents, one person running away. There's physical violence. There's sexual violence. There's just the spectrum runs so wide.
Or just destroying the family financially.
Yeah, like gambling debt and so I think we always got to take perspective. because in
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
in that way we're we should.
But we might have a little bit of each of those too.
What do you mean?
Gambling or like violence.
Do you have violence in your family?
No, but I feel like I have seen
Ah.
in my close families and relatives or
incidents of that.
suicidal family. I've
Yeah.
seen not seen, but I've heard of my close relatives who's like tried to commit suicide, but thankfully.
So those incidents you're saying is not too far away.
Yeah. Shall we go on to talk about like property? So there is this place called the Beverly of Korea.
Beverly Hills of Korea. Beverly.
Beverly Hills of Korea, which we were not aware until quite recently.
Yeah, in Pangyo.
Yeah, it's actually very close to where we live. So we decided to go and check it out. Like it's not a closed area. It's an open area. So you are like free to go and see.
That's right. In Korea, most of families live in apartments, and that's like the standard family unit.
Yeah.
And in Pangyo, apparently there are like homes, like you'll see in the US.
Houses.
Single houses. When we went, it was interesting because all of them were designed very differently, but they were very nice.
Yeah,
very impressed.
Very like modern architecture and definitely gave me that that rich family's aura. And then
it was like
you remember the house in the Parasite?
Oh yeah. The first
rich family's house.
Yeah, a lot of the houses look like that.
Yeah,
the 1% houses in Korea.
And I felt like, are we the Parasite looking up at these houses?
Jeez, Katie. Jeez. I didn't feel like that. I just felt like we're just taking a look.
But then, the moment that we stepped into that street, it just felt so cold.
Oh, remember I was like, hey, let's go check out some of the architecture. And we went up one hill.
Yeah.
And then they had like the silent alarm. And I mean, it was a public walkway. But as soon as we were walking up, the security car just came straight
Someone
up.
started flashing at us.
Yeah. And you're like, we got to go. I was like, chill out, Katie. This is public. What is he going to say? I'm going to just say I was adoring the architecture. But, like Katie freaks out so much, and then he didn't even say a word. I just gave him eye contact. What is he gonna say? Like, well, what are you doing on public space? But it looks really nice.
And some of those some of those houses are like built by very famous architects in Korea and got a lot of awards. Yeah, a lot of people apparently go to just
check out those houses.
Get inspired. And it was like definitely a very interesting experience. And for those of you who people living abroad and haven't really like visited Korea for a long time, you might remember Pangyo as like the old Pangyo, which was like just farming and nothing even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But like that area is changed 180 degrees. It's like all of even more expensive than Gangnam in some areas.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to live in Gangnam. Gangnam is like a business district. It's not good for residential. But everyone moved out towards Bundang, Pangyo, and that's where a lot of these, it's nice for families to live. And so they all commute in and out of Gangnam.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I remember we were in the car, we were discussing, we want to talk about some of the, how to get a house in Korea, what the financing is like and something like that, right? We kind of shot ourselves in the foot. After I had accrued some seed money, I decided to buy some property, but I bought the Officetel, which are like one-person studios. And I bought a few of those. And what I didn't know was that in Korea, there's a big benefit that everyone banks on, which you can only have if you're a non-property owner, which is the 무주택 혜택.
Yeah.
Which basically means is if you've never owned a house before, you can win a raffle or maybe win.
It's a lottery.
Yeah, it's a lottery system. So if there's a new apartment building complex coming up, let's say there's 200 units, they'll assign like 100 of those to go to the people who
signed up for the lottery.
And it gives you the ability to buy these real estate below market prices. That's why they call it a lottery. Because if you win this, then you're making money immediately. To be eligible, you have to not have any property. And so for us, like, I didn't know anything about that. No one really explained that to me. As soon as I bought those like studios, I'm no longer eligible. And so it like made it very difficult. And then if you do have property, to get loans for a proper apartment in Korea, I'm no longer eligible. And now like this this administration is clamping down because they're saying real estate prices are going way too high. So they're really killing anyone who have multiple real estate holdings. But the thing is, on paper, it looks like I have a lot, but no, these are single, very small units.
Yeah,
but it looks
they
like
don't even worth that much.
yeah, they're like basic entry. And so I should have just bought a regular apartment whose asset price can increase significantly. Instead, I have two small ones who don't even appreciate.
I know.
So right now in Korea, we've been trying to keep an eye out on where to buy, but it's especially hard because this administration too, again, the ability to get a loan is capped, the LTV ratio, which is the loan to value ratio. I don't know. Should we go into financial lingo like this?
Yeah, I think it's useful to know.
Basically, if a house costs $100, then the amount the bank will loan you is only $40. So in good times, when I bought mine, it was all the way up to 80%.
That was the good time.
Yeah, almost up to 90, right? But so that means now that you really have to bring all this capital in order to invest into real estate. What are apartment prices going for right now in Korea? At least around 500,000, right?
Yeah,
$500,000.
At least 5억.
Yeah.
From 5억 to sky's the limit.
yeah, it goes very
so
high.
like we've been debating, I mean, we are nowhere close to making this decision now, but
so given the scenario right now when the LTV ratio is very low, it doesn't make sense to buy a house, right? When you buy a house, you want to basically buy with the bank money. That way you have little capital put in, and then you're leveraging yourself with the bank's money.
Yeah.
So
that's how you make money, basically.
Yeah, that way you can put the remaining capital into something else if you'd like. But right now, basically anywhere in Seoul, even
in Gyeonggi-do, certain areas where we live, it's very highly restricted.
It's been designated as a high investment area, and then basically that means the LTV ratio is like capped at 40. 45,
really low.
And in some areas it's like 30% because there's way too many people investing in it. So that means, again, investing into $1 million house, you need to bring $700,000 in cash. The question then is, should we invest into an area that's outside of here?
Yeah, that is not capped.
Right. And then another thing to think about is we want to kind of live, those houses that we saw in Pangyo, which is not an apartment. It's like a single unit.
Yeah.
They're called villas or townhouses in Korea. And there's not a big market for that, or there's not as much of a demand for that as there is apartments. And the reason is that back in the old days, this is a very cultural thing. Living in an apartment is seen as having money, whereas the people who don't have money live in these villas, right? But that's changed because now a lot of these villas and these townhouses or these single family houses is really where everyone would ideally like to live, but they're way on the upper end or on the lower end.
Yeah, there's no middle.
No middle, but now there's a little bit of middle happening, and we want to get one of those, and because then you can have your own lawn, you can have a garage, and you can really live like you're living in the US. But then if you invest one of those, when you go to resell,
the prices don't really go up.
They don't go as much because there's not a big of a demand because of that culture, cultural bias from a long time ago. Whereas if you just invest into an apartment, you have to live an apartment life. But if you invest correctly, that goes up like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, and like
places that look just like cages from the outside, they're so much more expensive.
Yeah, that's the irony. So that's kind of something that we've been thinking about. That's just a little snapshot into like life in Korea. And
what is the LTV ratio in America?
I don't know. I haven't looked, but it's not capped.
Really?
Yeah, if you have good credit, you can.
That's really good.
Right now is a very good time to get a mortgage.
Maybe we should try to look at the US market.
No, but we would have no line of credit in the US because we don't have a job there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, this is something that we've been thinking about and we've been sharing because I know there's a lot of people who take interest in how to live here and want to move here. And we get a lot of emails. Yeah. Katie, do you remember what we were talking about earlier this week about celebrity worship?
Yeah.
I think that was an interesting topic that we can continue here.
So I think in Korea, compared to other countries, there's a high expectation of being ethical and moral to celebrities.
Yeah.
So if somebody does something that's like morally wrong or disappointing. Like the whole population is disappointed at him or her and wants to just cancel him or her out of the whole industry.
Yeah, and I think
that's very severe in Korea.
I think that's so wrong. Like, for example, isn't that what they did to Jay Park?
Yeah, Jay Park. To those of you who don't know, he's like he used to be part of this boy group. Like, I don't know, back early 2000. What happened or something?
Yeah, this is old news.
Actually, I don't know.
Maybe, do you remember why he was canceled?
Because he was like he was like maybe 1 year into his debut, and they were really getting a lot of fame. That group.
He was in a K-pop
called 2PM. Yeah. And then somehow this person discovered something he wrote in MySpace.
Like a internet person or like a netizen? Yeah, we call them netizen.
Netizen, yeah. Someone discovered or revealed what Jay Park wrote on his MySpace many years back in his high school years or something. Yeah. About like how living in Korea sucks and how he hates living or living here. He hates the people, blah, blah. Yeah. Something that's like insulting to the Korean people. Yeah. That was brought up all of a sudden. Yeah. And then the whole like netizen or like fans or whatever, they got so upset and betrayed by what he had said. Yeah. People wanted him basically out of that group. So that it ended up him being quitting that group, and he was
forced down, right?
Yeah, and then he's actually Korean American, so he ended up going back to America and kind of took a break for several years. Even though now he's like very successful, he's like
he's come back. He's had an amazing comeback.
Yeah, he has his own label called AOMG, a hip hop label, and he's doing really great, and nobody cares about that anymore. Just over time, all these things like I think just changes so quickly. But even at that time, it just made seem like he did like the biggest fault of his whole life. And now looking back, I think a lot of people agree that that was a very severe kind of action.
Like a reaction towards...
Yeah, what he kind of said emotionally in his early just adolescence period.
Yeah, I think for me personally, when I see celebrities, I like them because of the craft that they're good at. I don't see them as a role model for my life. I don't see them as a role model for my morality. I like a musician because they do music well. Yeah. I like an actor because they act well. And so when they mess up in their private life, I'm not disappointed. Of course, if I really like a musician or something and they have high moral character, they're high integrity, humble. That makes me like them so much more.
So I used to be very much influenced and very disappointed when some things like that broke out about some celebrity that I really like looked up to. Yeah. But now I feel like I've kind of grown up and I am able to like kind of see them differently. Yeah. So
like for example, when I hear about K-pop members having like some sort of relationship scandal, I'm like, isn't that expected? I mean, these people are like stifled and they're like they're not allowed to have relationships.
Yeah, like, that's a little bit extreme. I remember like this member from EXO, he kind of revealed that he's found a girl and he's gonna marry, but I don't know the exact details, but the fans were really angry that about the way he communicated about it.
Do you know why fans are getting like disappointed? Is because they think these celebrities are idols, like you're saying. Yeah. When you revere someone that much, anything that they do that doesn't meet your expectation leads to disappointment. Kind of sounding like my parents right now.
Oh, what a tough job to be a celebrity in Korea. Actually, I have a question to you then. Okay. So one of your favorite singers, Coldplay. You know, he's like known to be very humble too, and like very good character and all this. Yeah. But what if it turns out that he's been like doing something that's very ethically wrong and just very disappointing? Wouldn't you be disappointed? Would you stop listening to his music?
No, I wouldn't stop listening to his music.
But it'll keep coming at your head every time you listen to his music though.
Oh, but this is a tough one because there's R. Kelly who's like raping young girls. Yeah. And then you listen to them.
I feel like it'll never be able to get away from you
Yeah,
after
that's
that.
I can't listen to. I can't even listen to Michael Jackson that much anymore.
So what is one person that, because you said that you are able to distinguish their talent with their character and everything, private life and everything else?
So, but I guess it depends on the act itself. If the act is not harming other people, then
But then most of these things are like what harming other people. That's so. It really depends.
Give
on
me
how
something
you define
specific.
it.
that has happened. Actually, never mind. I think you're right. It does affect. Kitty, I'm looking right behind you, and I was looking at the calendar, and I see a big number circled. It's my dad's birthday soon.
We're not gonna forget it this time, right?
Yeah. I think my family forgot my dad's birthday last year, and it was not good. So, you know what's really difficult about Korean birthdays is that the older generation, they go by the lunar calendar,
Yeah.
the moon calendar.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people who don't know the difference, like in America and Western, that's based on the sun calendar.
Just one calendar.
Yeah. But in Korean, if you have Korean parents, a lot of the older generation, they'll go again by this moon calendar, and that date is different. So for example, my dad's birthday is September 2nd on the
sun calendar.
Yeah. So for example, my
Regular
dad
calendar.
So for example, my dad's birthday is September 2nd on the regular sun calendar. I feel like I'm talking about like Mayan civilization. And this translates to about October 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
And do you know how you know
it
that
changes
number?
every time too.
Every year, it's not a set date. So the way you check it is, if you have to first get a Korean calendar.
Yeah, you
right?
have to have it.
You have to have a Korean calendar.
Physical calendar.
Well,
Paper
you
one.
can technically go to Google, but that is not that accurate.
It's cumbersome.
It's cumbersome, right?
Yeah.
There's like a little 작은 날짜. In Korea, they call the moon calendar 작은 날짜, which means small number.
Yeah.
They have an alternative date on the bottom.
Mm.
And then you have to circle what the equivalent of the sun calendar is to the moon calendar every year.
Yeah.
And for a person with short-term memory who can't memorize 20 holds on a wall,
Yeah.
you have to memorize a rotating date every year, not for one parent, but for both parents.
Yeah.
And then
I feel you.
growing up, I'd be like, Dad, happy birthday. I don't believe in the sun calendar. I'm like, oh my God. And then I'll forget the moon calendar, and he'd be like, I raised my kids wrong.
Yeah, it's really
So you have to
part.
ask people, especially like
the old
Asian
people.
parents who moved abroad.
Mm.
Do you want to go by 큰 날짜, which is the sun calendar, or 작은 날짜, which is the moon calendar?
Well, yeah,
And everyone
Korea-
is different.
But you call it not 작은. I've never said 작은 날짜, 큰 날짜. You call it 양력 or 음력.
아 그래? 그 옛날 시골 스타일인가? Sorry,
Yeah,
we're saying
that's
it's
the-
countryside. That's like countryside talk.
Anyways, but since like I guess we use Google Calendar, but Google Calendar doesn't support the moon calendar way. So
I'm sure it does. I'm sure there's
no,
something.
it doesn't. I tried to find it a long time ago, but it doesn't. So I have to manually actually insert it every year, beginning of the new year,
Yeah.
and then
And I'm
just
so
write it down.
type of person who's not really good at memorizing dates. Today, when me and Katie were driving, we're at a cafe. We're just taking a breath of fresh air. We're like, we need to make an app that gives a notification to you about like important dates, like that rings you 1 week in advance,
Yeah.
3 days in advance, and then 1 day before advance. Especially that you can like put the dates in the moon calendar dates as well. And
Yeah.
we need to make a system going because this is difficult.
So I would totally download it.
Yeah, let's make one. I mean, just for fun. I'm sure. I'm almost 100% sure there's something out there, but just for fun,
Yeah.
just as a small project, let's
Yeah.
make it and let's help some Asian Americans. Well, I'm not. What is that? Only Koreans that
I
have
feel
the.
like other Asian countries would also use
For sure,
that.
Chinese, right? Because I'm sure Chinese
Mm.
use the moon calendar. Not sure about
Indians?
Japan's.
Do you think Indians do that?
I don't know.
Maybe our Indian listeners can verify.
Yeah, or how about the other Southeast Asian countries?
Like Vietnam,
Yeah.
Philippines, I'm not sure. I really have no idea. For sure, Japan, China, they all use like moon calendar too.
Yeah. So that's why I called my dad, or I called my mom because I was like, Mom, are we doing moon? are we doing moon calendar or sun calendar this year? And she's like, are you an idiot? We've been doing the moon calendar this our entire life.
It's your inner wish coming out.
Yeah.
Can you change it?
And she's like, you better start paying attention to things. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think most Korean parents go by the moon calendar. So
are you gonna go by the moon calendar or the sun calendar?
I mean, we've been going by the sun calendar.
Or do you want to go by the Mars calendar?
What are you talking about?
Let's go by the Mars calendar. Let's be different.
Where is the Mars calendar?
All right, guys, this is getting wacky. We're going to sign off, let the curtains come down. And neighbors, if you'd like to throw some roses or perhaps an email, get us at futureneighbor@gmail.com.
Or if you really enjoyed listening to this episode, you can write us a review too.
That's right. We need some reviews on our Apple podcast. Drop them like it's hot. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Adios.
Be safe. Bye.